with the Alumni Association of Case Western Reserve University, and it's my pleasure to welcome you today.
I'm Crystal Crosby. I'm the Assistant Director of Student Young Alumni and Affinity Programs, and I'm so glad to welcome you as well to this film discussion. This is the second one, so it's glad to see I think Paula from our first film again. And so hopefully this will be a very enlightening conversation as well.
Yeah. So we're glad that you all were able to join us this afternoon, and we hope that you and your loved ones are staying safe. Just a few housekeeping notes as we get started. Just right now, you're muted by default, just to limit the background noise as we get started. However, through the course of the event and discussion, you'll be able to unmute yourselves as you want and participate as you see fit. And if for any reason you do not feel comfortable speaking, you can add comments and questions to the chat and we will read them out to the group on your behalf. We just want everyone to know this is a safe space and we welcome your participation at any level that you feel comfortable participating. If you want us to address you directly during the discussion, I want to make sure that you have your name appearing correctly. So if you click on the participants tab and find your name, you can select the more option and rename yourself. You can add your preferred pronouns and your preferred name there, and that way we're addressing you how you would like to be addressed. And then just a few updates from campus. So the spring semester is underway. We have students who are studying in person, remotely, and some who are studying in a combination of formats. Their safety and well-being has been the university's top priority, and careful measures have allowed CWRU to continue our educational and research priorities. In fact, the response to the pandemic has become, Case Western's response to the pandemic has been vital to the fight against COVID-19. And we invite you to follow that and our research at case.edu/together. And that'll give you regular updates on research, academics, alumni, and students. Additionally, in support of the ongoing conversation about race, equality, and social justice in our country, Case Western has launched a race, police, and protest website. It can be found at case.edu/race and justice, and it provides statements from university leadership, as well as university resources and the opportunity for members of the CWRU community to share their thoughts. We acknowledge that the day's most profound questions require work and ongoing communication, and we look forward to sharing that progress. At the Alumni Association, we continue to use all of our platforms to connect with you. So to continue to engaging with our community, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn, all by searching at CWRU Alumni, and you will find us in some capacity. And make sure you visit case.edu/alumni. It's our website, and you'll find a collection of current upcoming events as well as past events, recordings, and programming. And now more than ever, these virtual events and social media are important in our connection. Throughout this month, the Alumni Association has collaborated with Cleveland Institute of Arts Cinematheque to host this virtual film fest. As Crystal mentioned, this is our second discussion in the festival. Additionally, we would like to also highlight the CWRU Film Society, which is a student organization, and they're actually celebrating 50 years on campus this year. The Film Society is a nonprofit student-run organization dedicated to the promotion of film as an art form. They make films of artistic and cultural importance, as well as they show films of artistic importance as well as popular films at Strosack Auditorium. And then I think more recently, I think they're able to extend that virtually. But reflecting on the spirit of the Film Society's mission to share films of cultural importance, each of these independent films selected through our series showcases critical issues currently impacting the culture. We hope that you've all taken the time and watched the two of us. However, if you haven't, don't worry. We're going to be discussing we're not going to be discussing the specific plot points, but more so the broader issues that were raised by the film. And with that, it's my pleasure to introduce today's host of our discussion, Liz Rockeforte. She is the director of the CWRU's Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender Center. She has a master's in Women and Gender Studies from the University of Cincinnati And through her work, Liz seeks to advocate and support all LGBTQIA students, faculty, staff, and alumni, and provide them with resources, connections, and information. And we're happy to have her here to facilitate the discussion today. And then just a quick overview of the movie. And the two of us were, it covered two retired women, Nina and Madeleine, who have been secretly in love for decades. Everybody, including Madeleine's family, thinks they are simply neighbors. They enjoy their daily lives together until an unforeseen event, I'm not going to say in case you haven't had a chance to watch, turns their relationship upside down and leads Madeleine's family to gradually unravel the truth about them, if you will. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Liz and start off maybe with some of the most critical issues or questions raised by the film. And I invite you all, like I said, to unmute and mute yourselves as you feel comfortable.
And I just want to remind everyone, this is Crystal across the Alumni Association again, that this is a safe space, but we are recording this call or this webinar, this meeting, just so that we can share with people that missed the film. It'll be posted on our website. So just in case you're not comfortable sharing any like personal stories, feel free just to kind of know that it is being recorded yet again, but for those purposes, but that this is a safe space. And I think, like, as previously mentioned by Tiana, please feel free to share what you feel comfortable sharing. So then again, we're going to turn it over to Liz Rockeforte, a great friend and campus partner. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Thank you so much. And thanks for letting us know it's being recorded. I think that's helpful for us to know if it's going to be able to be viewed somewhere else. And hopefully, I'm not a film critic, so I hope you all have more information than I do around film in general. I love watching films, and this was a new one to me. Thank you for the opportunity to be here, to the Alumni Association. I love working with you all. We have a really strong relationship on campus that goes all the way back 10 years from the time that LGBT Center was opened at Case. And so I'm happy to do this. I just see someone posted, okay, so yeah, of course, do what you need to do. Thank you for letting us know, Denise. And we can talk, we can just keep talking, but stay on or go off as you need to go, no problem. Thanks for letting us know. So I mean, I would just like to start with, I have a lot of thoughts, but I want to know what you thought. Did most people see it? Maybe we can just like raise our hand if people saw. Okay, so now everyone here has seen it, so we can talk maybe more about plot points if we wanted to, and like, talk about the movie. What were just some initial reactions from you all around, when the film ended? How did you feel? What were your thoughts?
Well, I can say that I kind of thought that it was like a toss-up between romance and thriller there for me, especially how it ended. Like, I feel like I went on like a roller coaster of emotions. I feel like there were points in the movie that they seemed like they were more thriller, based. Like, I felt like, my heart was beating fast. The way it was filmed, kind of like around the corners and like kind of, building up into the big reveal type of thing helped to, I don't know, really invest me in the movie plot. And not that I wasn't already invested in their relationship, because it was a beautiful relationship, and it gave me all the feels. But I really kind of liked how the movie did like a nice balancing act there between two genres, if you will.
Yeah. Is there someone from Cinematheque here today? I thought I might have heard that, Tiana, or no, or is that?
Genevieve will be jumping on. She is coming in between meetings, but she's going to be making an appearance.
I just wanted to make sure if there was someone here that we, could also defer to them in some ways.
Oh,
but,
yes.
Yeah, I agree with you. Other people have similar feelings around that or something different?
Yeah, I have a comment, and that is, I really thought it was good that it was older women. And I think there was a line from Nina that said, I wrote it down, nobody gives a damn about old dykes. And I thought the fact that there are other lesbian films, such as Carol, that we've probably all seen and really enjoyed, as well as Blue is the Warmest Color. But this one had to do with older women, and not just lesbian women, but a lot of films, really. And the population is aging, and there are a lot of older people, unless we all die of COVID. But until then, it's good to have a film about older people that's not cute.
Yes. Mary, I saw you. Thank you for that. Go ahead, Mary.
Yeah, I just was impressed with all of the emotions that the movie portrayed. There was, kind of denial, fear, anger, guilt, regret. I mean, just so many emotions that the characters had to work through. Surprise, I mean, it was just a lot. And I agree that I thought it was nice that it was an older couple, because you don't see that portrayed that much.
Yeah, I love it. I also really was taken by they didn't shy away from like the tenderness, and there was like, they kissed, there was, you know what I mean? It wasn't, they showed them as romantic, right? And I really appreciated that, because I think also just in general, we don't, especially in the LGBT community, it can be a youth focused, sort of culture, and to see romance, love, even like hints of like sexuality around it was really striking to me. And I felt very affirming to see that. Other reflections just in general around that, or something else? Paula.
Yeah, I want to thank the Alumni Association and Tanya for choosing these films, because these are things that we would see at a film festival, and so the opportunity to see it, on the computer, on the TV, is really appreciated. And also the fact that it's a French film. It was a foreign film, and I like foreign films because the pace is sort of slow often compared to our fast-going, American films. So I think you chose well, and I just want to comment on that.
Crystal, I appreciate that.
Paula, I think Paula, you had something to say?
Yes, and Elaine, I agree with you about that. It is so wonderful to have have more exposure to other things. I found myself so sad for Nina. And the other thing was when the daughter saw Nina taking Madeleine out the gate, it was wonderful that she didn't stop them. And I thought it was really poignant that the daughter came around to accept the relationship.
Did everyone have that experience? I think it was like, did she let them go? Did she? I was curious about that, because that's interesting. That's your interpretation. I wasn't sure if she knew or she did see it, let them go. And then, because at the end she was running, right? Like she came, like, it seemed like she was trying to catch them. So then it was kind of mixed messaging for me. I wasn't sure. I mean, and yes, she was like, hey, let's talk about it. It's like, it took that much. But did anyone else? I wasn't really sure if she absolutely knew it was them. What other people? Was that just me? I don't know.
My partner at the end, he didn't think that she had come around, and he thought that she was just saying that to kind of let them open the door, and then that she was going to run in and grab Nina back. But that's not how I interpreted it. I when she came to the door, I was like, oh, this is finally, she's had this time now where she saw the photos of them together. She saw her mom run and hug her, like, out the door of the apartment in the hallway. Like, it's finally like starting to get to this point where she can feel it, especially after talking to the doctor about, like, are we really going to keep my mom in this state? But I don't know. I didn't feel what he thought at all until he said it, and then I was like, oh, well, at the end, like, if this isn't her coming around, that's so frustrating, but also completely possible. So
that's so interesting, because actually, now that we're talking about it, that's kind of maybe that's the point, right? Like, because that's what happens oftentimes. You don't know for sure, right? If a family member, they might I want to believe too that like the daughter came around, right? It's like, this is a genuine thing. She really meant it. But I like actually where it ended, because you don't know, there's not total resolution around it one way or another, other than they're together, which is like the most important part. At least in that moment, they were together. But that is actually, I feel like in some ways that's kind of reflective of a lot of people's experiences with coming out, no matter what stage in their life, that it's like this, it's not so black and white, you're out, you're in, and everything's okay or it's not, right? It's much more complex around coming out. So I wonder if that was purposeful, or if not. I mean, that's certainly interesting the way it might have been impacting us.
Yeah, and I found myself like trying to find like angry at the daughter, but then also like feeling a little bit compassion, because she seemed to like care about her mom. Like, you know, she came in, wanted to take care of her. She even hired like the nurse I couldn't stand. Like I'm sorry. Like almost listening at the television of her. But like she even hired like the nurse to like try to look after her and to help her. So I think that like she just quite like, she was frustrating, but at the same time I kind of like felt bad because she was trying to help the best way she kind of knew how, kind of in a sense. And so I don't know, like and then a lot of times when I see like movies with around like the LGBT community and people coming out, the family is just not so supportive, or it's always like so negative. Can you kind of talk about like, you know, how do you support, even in our own like real life, how do we support people that are coming out, or how do you kind of, you know, ally to that process to someone that you know?
Lane,
Yeah,
I can't hear you. And then I think, yeah, okay, go ahead.
On that note, and in that vein, this movie was done in 2019, right? How different would it be in 2009? And how would it be received? And how would we relate to it? How would you relate to it? How would your family relate to it 10 years ago?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I was thinking about that too, because how so much has changed and so much hasn't in some ways. And there's an assumption that everyone, you know, because 2016, at least in America, in the US, like same gender marriage is legal. Therefore, a lot of people outside the community think, oh, everything's fine now, you know, it's all good. They don't understand individual case by case basis. It's a very different experience for people, and not everyone is okay. And I love that it was set in the present, because do you all remember there was a movie, do you remember If These Walls Could Talk Too? Does anyone remember this? It was an HBO's, like, they made If These Walls Could Talk 1, and it was tackled the subject of abortion. And the If These Walls Could Talk 2 was a movie about lesbian women, right? And what it does is it takes place in the same house through like 3 different generations of lesbians who live in that house, right? So it's a neat thing. But the first one is women in the 1940s who have this very same arrangement. The little vignette is women in the, you know, and their families don't know. And in that one, someone dies, and and it's the exact same story. So I was thinking about it. I was like, well, they represented that. I think it was made in 2000. I'll put a link in. And it's the same story. And this is, I mean, that was happening in 1940, and I'm sure this is happening in 2019, you know? So I was really happy that it was actually set in the present and not this kind of like, you know, looking back and saying, oh, that was back then. It doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, wow.
I think that was part of one of the questions I had, you know, not knowing enough about the LGBTQ community in other countries or other parts of the world or anything like that, not knowing what, you know, the laws are, what is, you know, deemed, you know, allowable, or what, you know, however you know, want to say. Like I wasn't aware, or I'm still not aware of, you know, the laws in Paris or UK, or in the UK, or if they vary, or, you know, different things like that. So I don't know if you might have an idea, Liz, about it. In 2019, or that wasn't that long ago, you know, were what were the laws or rights, or what, what's acceptable and what's not?
Yeah,
I have
absolutely.
I was just going to say, I don't remember the name of the movie, but I think it's on Netflix. It's two older women. It's a true story. They're Canadian, and it's one of them gets dementia, and they start off. They're both on this baseball team. Do you know what movie I'm talking about, Liz?
Is it a documentary, or is it?
Yes, it's
Yes. It was the women's baseball. You know the movie with Tom Hanks. There's no crying in baseball. You know that fictional film.
Yeah.
Yes.
What was that called? I can't remember.
A League of Their Own.
Yeah, it was like women, a League of Their Own. It was like women from that.
It tells the real story of two women who met doing on that baseball team during World War II. It's a beautiful documentary. We'll try to find it in the link.
It's really sweet. And the other thing I wanted to talk about was in the movie that we just watched was Nina. Her personality, her motivations. I mean, and I watched the movie a week ago, so my memory's not the greatest, but do we know anything about her past? She just seemed had such a profound fear of abandonment. She was so angry that she couldn't be with Madeleine, and just threw that rock through the window at Madeleine's daughter. And was that her daughter's? Was that Madeleine's son, or was that the husband of the daughter?
It was the son. But I'm with you, Mary, because there were points in time where I was like, "Is this her husband? Is this the son?" But I believe that was the brother, and so Nina, Madeleine's son.
Yeah. No, that's a good question. That's one of the things that you're left with. Like, you don't have a lot of information around her. Something about the woman who had the stroke. I can't remember her name.
Madeleine.
Oh, that was Madeleine. Well, okay. So, but you don't know much about her partner's history, right?
Well, do you think that like with Madeleine and like the two women's apartments were like drastically like different? Like Madeleine had like a lot of like things and pictures. Very like well decorated and a lot of very like kind of clustered in a sense. And then like when you look at Nina's apartment, it was kind of empty. So like maybe we don't know a lot for her. So maybe that's why she was more listen, like this is the love of my life. I'm not letting that go, because she didn't have a lot. You know what I mean? It's kind of how I felt, like why she was so like strong about it, beyond the fact that she loved this woman. But maybe that's something as well.
Yeah, Paula, you have your mic off. Do you want to go ahead?
I took it to be that Nina really lived with Madeleine, and so she didn't have her refrigerator on, and she didn't have things because they really lived together.
Oh,
yeah.
And Mary, to your point, I thought Nina was really extreme also. And I like how you brought out what was her past. We really don't know.
Yeah. I thought the same. I think it was a setup. Like they just pretended that she lived there. And so it was a setup, but she actually didn't live there. That her home was actually with Madeleine.
oh.
I was thinking about Nina's reaction. I don't know what you all think about this, because I was wondering about her past too. But when she gets really mad before Madeleine has a stroke, and she starts like yelling at her when she finds out that she's not going to put her house on the market or her apartment, and she says, "I can't believe you're doing this to me again." It seems like there was a suggestion that this has been ongoing, right? And so I wasn't sure if it was like she was just so desperate in love with her, all she wanted was to be with her, and then this happens and she can't even be in the same space with her, and that's why she almost seems like crazed a little bit, right? I wasn't sure, or if it was like, what was her past like? Who knows? What are other people's thoughts on that?
I didn't think about it like that.
Well, I think because they also, when she's at I think it's when she's at the house of either the daughter or the son, and she says like, "Your mom never loved your dad," and so I thought, well, maybe they've been together for 20, 30, how many years, like especially with that old photo. And then I also, with the apartment thing, one of my friends I was watching with as well, he thought that maybe that it was so empty because she maybe had finally packed it up, and because this was maybe finally the time they were going to move, and that like all of her possessions were ready to go and leave. And so, she's exceptionally mad because like she was really ready to go this time, finally.
Yeah, that's interesting. I never thought about it that way either, that could be it. I think that they had been together, that the suggestion was that she had actually cheated on her husband, and they had been together for a very long time. I thought, at least that's what I took from it. I mean, it wasn't explicit, but it seemed implicit.
Yeah, that's kind of what I took, that they had been together. I don't know before the husband or not, but but that she had been with her through the marriage and everything. And I guess dad passed away at some point, didn't give like a specific time or whatever, but however many years passed. But it did seem like it was always something that she had going with Nina during her marriage and continued after the fact. And I remember when her daughter, it was like I think at the very beginning of the film, her daughter was doing her hair, and was saying how the brother is always accusing you, or is always talking about how you're cheated on, dad, and you never defend yourself, you never say anything about it. And she still didn't say anything about it. She just kind of sat there on it. And I kind of wondered if maybe like her guilt or how she felt, like her son felt, with the relationship with the dad, kind of kept her also from coming out to the family and living her true life like that, because she felt some kind of way that she was letting the family down, or that she had done this horrible thing and angered her, I don't want to say children, because I feel like the daughter was pretty much in the dark for the majority of the film and her life on the topic, but some kind of way the son was privy, whether he, saw something or just, whatever, however it went. And it seems like he always had this thought in his mind of kind of how his mom was living her life.
Interesting.
This may be a little off topic, but it took place in France. Does anybody know about the difference in different countries as far as relationships? Is it different in France compared to the United States? I know it's probably different in different parts of the United States because we are such a huge country, but I wonder about France and its acceptance of these relationships. Does anybody know?
Yeah, I know that same-sex marriage has been legal since 2013 in France. So culturally, I'm not an expert. I did spend a long time in Amsterdam, a couple of 2 or 3 spring breaks teaching a gender sexuality course for CASE, a short-term study abroad. In Amsterdam, that part of Europe has tended to be a little bit more progressive around sexuality, et cetera. Like the Netherlands were the first country in the world to legalize same-sex marriage, right? And that was way back in the early 2000s, I think. But yeah, so in France, it's 2013. And I think my understanding is that culturally, it just really varies like it does here too. So you can have the legal protections and the legal, but it doesn't mean that people within their families or within their communities, are having good experiences necessarily. And so I don't think it's a necessarily super conservative culture or society around sexual orientation where it's like, it's completely like, we don't talk about this because same gender marriage is legal there. You know what I'm saying? So I got the feeling it was really just this family dynamic in some ways. Not sure if that's helpful. Any other thoughts around it? I don't know. I'm not an expert in sexuality in France, but what do other people think? That's a great question.
I think you're right, Liz. I think they're more generally more accepting in Europe, particularly the large cities. Maybe smaller towns, it's a little not so much, but I agree with you.
Interesting. Yeah, and that's kind of, again, the coming out narrative is flipped on its head in this way, right? Because it's about, she's coming out to her kids as opposed to her kids coming out to her, right? And that's like not something that you see that often. And the fear of abandonment almost of her, like, or losing her kids is so real, but usually it's the opposite. I mean, at least, of course, based on my experience working with college students, it's the opposite, right? Like the kids are afraid of their families abandoning them or letting them go. And the daughter's reaction, I wanted her to react differently, but I also thought, she probably feels kind of betrayed in some way because she didn't know, like her mom had this whole life, whether it's or not she's homophobic, which she could have been, had some homophobia. But I mean, can you imagine like finding out your mom or your parent had a whole entire separate life? Like, I feel like her rage in some ways was not valid because of the, homophobia, but valid just because she like found out that her mom didn't tell her something super important. I don't know. That was kind of, I thought the characters were well written, I guess is what I'm saying. They felt multidimensional, like even the characters, the brother, I was kind of like, you're a jerk. But the sister at least had this kind of, you could see she was torn. And I liked how she was portrayed in a complex manner, right? Not just like this. Sure. What other people think about the characters or character development or anything really, but I was just thinking about, the complexity.
Yeah. So Liz, can you talk a little bit about and what, like, for this woman to not be living like authentically, like that duality of like her family and knows her as one person, but then like she has this whole kind of part that she has hidden away from herself. Like, what kind of like impact does that have on like the individual when like they're not able to be, and I know it probably varies like person to person, but like when you're not able to be like authentically you, like that has to like still impact your like physically, mentally, what kind of impact does that have on someone?
I mean, I can talk about it too. I'm sure, I don't know if there are other people who have had personal experiences with a family or themselves. They can also, it's funny. I was just talking to a student though, like last week, who is going to come out to their family really terrified and is not out to actually anyone. And he said to me something like, I just feel tired. Like it's a lot, and I think that is an experience of people, and you don't even know how exhausting it is until you're not in it in that moment. And I wasn't telling him I think people always are like trying to push people to come out. And I think that's the wrong thing to do. Like we need to give people time and space to make their process. But I just thought about both of them, the stories they had to make up to like lies, right? Like to talk about how they knew each other. It just felt like that must be exhausting. That was my take on it. It felt like very exhausting. What did other people think, or other people's experiences around that? Good question, Crystal.
I think that's true about any issue, not just about if you're gay, if there's some part of your self that you just have to keep hidden for whatever reason, it feels heavy. It's a burden. You want to be able to be your authentic self. But it takes a trusting environment to do that.
I had an experience with a very long-term friend who just casually says to me, well, I'm gay. You know that though, right? And I never made I didn't really know, but she assumed, or I thought she assumed from that comment that I already knew. But it didn't matter to me, first of all, but she needed to tell people, I believe. And it was interesting to think about that now, because I didn't think about it in the past, of what were all the pieces to that, and what was that like for her to not share it. And I didn't really think about that perspective until now.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Absolutely. Makes sense.
I want to change the subject for a minute. I want to talk about the caregiver that came in, and that whole thing with her, was that her son that broke into Nina's apartment and stole money and ransacked the place. And, you know, she was kind of a cold one, wasn't she?
The caregiver and I had me wanting to throw things at my television. Like every time she popped on the screen, like I was so angry. She just wore me out to no end. And the same thing with her son. Like he came in, like he threatened her. Like I just felt like so awful. And just like, I know that people need, and because I think for her, she was just like, well, I need this job. And like Nina just wanted to like care for Madeleine. And like the fact that like she was like, so people were being so cold and so distant before, like that's when I felt like the greatest empathy for Nina, because I just thought like she just wants to like take care of her, you know, her love. Like that's it. And that's what anybody would want to do. And just to be like treated so coldly and so disrespected, just coldly and disrespectful, was just hard for me to watch, you know? So, and I'm with you, the caregiver, I couldn't stand.
Yeah, I agree. Other thoughts around that caregiver. It was an interesting, like, thinking about, I felt like pretty well written, right? Because it really played into the end of it and what happened at the end, you know, like, but it didn't feel like it was that obvious. You kind of knew something was going to happen. You didn't know what it was going to be. But I don't know about you, when she opened that door and the cat was there, and it was just like, I was like, oh no, they're not going to make that. Yeah.
That's where like the thriller parts start coming in for me. And I was like, oh my goodness, they're gonna go in this apartment and the son is gonna be in there and something horrible is gonna happen. And like, I mean, horrible that they got their money stolen and they weren't able to, you know, go on their move away and do everything that they wanted to do. But I really, because you know, it's an independent film, like the way that the camera was set up, the music, like I really saw it taking like a darker, dramatic turn, and like some of my heart got to beating fast. But I thought it was interesting that like the caregiver had said that she had been doing this for, I think, like 20 years or something like that, or 20 plus years. And I, you know, like I could talk about like, you know, home health care and like, you know, empathy and care for the elderly in the medical field and medical and homes. But I just thought that was interesting that like I know that the daughter wanted, and then the family wanted like the best for Madeleine at the end of the day, but it was kind of like, you know, where did you get this person? You just got this, the first available nurse that you could find to take care of your mother. It didn't feel like, and I know like they were around, like I've seen like some, you know, situations like this happen before, where you see like you don't get any family members, you know, coming around and taking care and being involved. So I was happy that they were still, you know, involved in taking care of their mother, but it did kind of feel like they kind of just passed her off, at least to an extent. That's how it felt to me.
Yeah.
I would like to just mention some of the director's touches. Nowadays, films seem to be really focusing on the faces, you know, which this film did, especially the eyes of Madeleine, you know, initially after her stroke, and then as she began to get a little bit better after her, you know, spontaneous recovery a little bit, you know, her eyes began to move a little bit more, and the film was, you know, very close up on the face, and I thought that was an interesting aspect from the point of view of the director.
I hadn't thought about that, but that's true, and I hadn't thought about that. I really liked that because it communicated so much about her state of mind and where she was at. Yeah, Paula.
The director, there was an interview with him after the movie. I don't know if anyone else saw it. and he's Italian. And when he was, I believe, 7 or 8, there were some important people in his life and he wanted to give back to them. And the story was an effort to do that. And the way that he decided to put them at the same apartment with the hallway in between, he actually experienced that later in his life with someone else. And he thought, oh, that's perfect. It was really interesting. I didn't listen with an ear to talk about it so much. And it also had an interview with Nina. And it just started up after I watched the movie.
That's great. I'm going to have to go back and look at that. I'm really interested. I didn't see it. I actually didn't do any research on the director at all, or kind of what, I didn't even know how the director identified their gender, if, it was a man, woman, or somebody who was non-binary or trans, but I'm interested in some ways because it's kind of, have, not that his sexual orientation matters, but it kind of does in these kind of things. Like people will often talk about who's allowed to tell the stories, right, of the community, and should people who haven't lived it be allowed to, not allowed, but who can tell the story best. And I don't know if he is part of the community where he came out or not, but oftentimes, filmmakers who do queer films are queer themselves, not always, but, and they're talking about it. But that's really interesting. We'll have to watch it.
I don't remember hearing anything about him specifically.
Yeah.
Beyond, that he was from Italy. I believe he moved to France. Some of those facts, but not about his sexual orientation or family influence that way.
Yeah.
I have a question about the water, the river that they really focused on at the beginning, but especially the young girls and the dress kind of vague figure underwater that they were staring at one point. And I feel like I don't recall any of that imagery towards the end, except whenever they found her at the river again, and Nina was there at one point too. But did they? I can't remember if they showed the young girls at all towards the end. But did anyone have a reaction or thought as to what that imagery was in the beginning?
Good question.
So I know toward the end they showed Nina was jumping in and she was saving one of the girls or from drowning or from going on or from being under the water and everything. But I did have questions about kind of the symbolism of if it was more so the young girl or if it was the water. And so I was just kind of, thinking to myself, is it, the ability to kind of run free, the freeness of being this young unbothered child or this young untethered girl. But then I couldn't figure out how the water was working into it, or was it the overwhelming feeling of what's, everything that's going on kind of preventing this young girl from living the best life that she could live type of thing. That's kind of how I was trying to see, just because of what and that was at the end, just because of what I know of the film. But at the beginning, I really didn't know what to think of it.
I made up a whole narrative about the whole thing. I don't know if anyone else did. Did you? Because I don't, I have a whole idea about that. Mary, were you talking? You want to? Oh, we can't hear you, Mary. I'm sorry.
No, Liz, I want to hear your narrative.
Oh, okay.
I unfortunately need to see it again to remember all that.
Yeah. So I mean, it's not cohesive, but I thought that there were dreams, right? I mean, the one where she's there helping her grandson before she has a stroke. I have an idea about that too, but I thought they were both dreams. I know one really clearly was a dream, right? Because she wakes up it's actually Nina, right? She wakes up out of it and it's that same park. So I thought the first one was a dream as well. because it's kind of dreamlike, and they're playing hide and go seek, and one of them disappears like completely. Did you notice that at the very beginning, that first scene, one of the kids disappears? And so it's like the subconscious around their relationship, or their sort of meaning to each other, or the freedom, or something around that. But I thought they were really legitimately both dream areas, but that park figured in centrally in some way in their life obviously was really important to them. But then a person I was watching the movie with, when, that whole thing, which wasn't a dream, where she was like helping her grandson get the ball out, right? And she sees that thing, the way I made sense of that, I mean, it could be completely wrong, was that, and then she has the stroke like right after that, was that it was a neurological, like she saw something, like she was seeing something, you know what I mean? Like it was like a precursor, it was like to the stroke, that there was something, that was, because she kind of seemed off a little bit, actually, if you go back. I would have loved to see it again, because I felt like she was kind of off a little bit before that, like like there was some other hints that there was something going on. And I don't know what happens with strokes. My mom had a stroke, and I don't know if you have like if you can't have visual cues ahead of time or something, but that's how I made sense. It was like that. That's my narrative, but. Anyone else?
Liz, I thought that I didn't think of it as a dream at all. I really like that. I thought when Nina went back to the river near the end of the movie, I thought that girl had died, and that she pulled someone who had died, maybe representative of Madeleine, out of the river. But I didn't understand. I didn't take it any further to, I don't know. I didn't understand it. And now that you say about the dreams, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I don't know. I think one of them very clearly was a dream, because she wakes up right after it. And maybe it was that one when she's pulling the girl out. So for me, I'm wondering if it is symbolic or metaphorical around, like caring for each other, or I don't really know. But yeah, that was interesting. I have another question though. It's really interesting what you all think. There's these criticisms sometimes that have come out around LGBTQ movies, that they tend to be very tragic, right? They focus on tragedy, the tragedy of experience in the LGBT community, which is certainly accurate in a lot of ways. But some of the critiques have been that like there's just no good movies out there that are like happy, or like have a good ending, have a happy ending, where someone doesn't die. And before you all got on, the three of us were kind of talking. I was like really scared too that someone was going to die in this movie, because I think I'm programmed. I see Adrian shaking. Yeah. So like I'm so programmed in like watching queer films, I think someone's going to die. You know what I mean? It tends to be that, but they don't. So would you say this is a happy ending, or does it break away from that tradition? What do you all think? I'm just curious. From that tradition of like, tragedy in LGBTQ films.
Can you refresh my memory? How does it end? I'm sorry, I can't remember.
They're just dancing together, right? Like the daughter's banging on the door, they don't answer it, and they just are together again, and they're staring at each other's eyes. To me, it felt very loving and peaceful, actually. My impression of it was that, and the song that they always listen to is playing. So, yeah.
Thank you.
I'd be curious to know like more about the director's intentions, and like what he may have been like seeking to represent or create with this, because it is like the intersections of disability, age, sexuality, like women, like there are a lot of different experiences in this that aren't covered in other films. And I think also, so my mom also had a stroke, and her mom had a stroke. And I don't know if any of you that have had people with strokes in your life, oftentimes the recovery, it's really uncertain. It could be a pretty severe stroke, and there could be a pretty dramatic recovery. And that time range could be a year, or it could be less severe, have not much of a recovery, and that could happen in a month or two, right? So I think too, like the ending kind of leaves you in this place where it's like, is this where Madeleine will be? You know, like will their time together and like this experience, like this coming farther and farther as time goes on post stroke and maybe with different therapy and stuff, like will they get to move to Rome, like, or will they be together in this way? You know, so no, it was happy at least that they are together now, right? And I think that to me, I was like, okay, well maybe, you know, if this is it, that's great, but also there is this chance, maybe, you know, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of, I was like a maybe. Yeah, Mary, go ahead.
Yeah, we're left with some hope at the end that maybe they'll get to Rome eventually. We don't know, but it's hopeful.
Yeah, I tried to be optimistic like that, you know, okay, right now it's, you know, we're not going to Rome, it's not happening, but at least we're back together in, you know, a way that we weren't able to be together, you know, just most recently. And whether we're in Rome, whether we're in Paris, whether we're on the moon, we're still here to end together in each other's arms with our song. And I thought that you know, in the middle of everything that's going on, I don't know if the song was really playing or if it was just, you know, like, you know, in the fourth dimension, whatever, however it says, or, you know, if Madeleine had the presence of mind to, you know, go and turn the song on because, you know, she could feel that, you know, like this was their moment. They needed this kind of healing, if you will, or if, like I said, if it was just kind of something we were hearing, and they were just, you know, dancing in silence. I wasn't clear on that, but I liked that it did not end in tragedy. When, like I said, like it gave that kind of feel that something was amiss, and so I'm just glad that they just faked us out.
Yeah, in some ways, I think it does break with that tradition too. Paula, I'm sorry, you unmiked yourself. Do you want to, or muted? Do you want to say something?
Yeah, that's okay. I found it to be different than that. I know that I have a very black and white view of the world sometimes. I thought when the money was stolen, that ended the chance of going. I thought it was wonderful that they were together and that gave hope, but I didn't have any feelings of like this happy ending. I know what you're trying to describe in a difference of no one dying and not a tragedy, but I didn't get that feeling level.
You know, when you say that, I can see both sides. I think I went through both of those motions. Like I went through that, oh my God, it's over for them. Like they're never going to do what they need. And this is just, they're just going to be in this moment because they have nothing else. It's never going to happen for them. And then I think after that, I really was with Adrian kind of like saying, oh my goodness, hopefully maybe it's going to be okay. But you know, what's so sad is like they had to go through so much to just get back to that point. You know, that in and of itself, and that's the reality of what happens when people can't come out or don't come out or are not, you know, like just to get to that point when they were back together, like if they had been a heterosexual couple, that never would have happened. I mean, they never would have had gone through this entire thriller experience, right? This kind of, you know, like she's hiding in the shower. Now that I'm thinking about the idea of a thriller, I mean, it's really kind of there, right? Like there are all these like moments of total, you know, like almost like classic sort of, I mean, I don't know much about thrillers, but yeah, it's definitely there. I mean, how intense the movie was just to get them back together, for crying out loud, you know, and how sad, and it's so sad to me, you know, so even though I have had no one died, it's still such a, you know, it says a lot about how things still are, I think.
I thought it was interesting the way they had the two apartments set up that their doors were facing each other and the peepholes. So they could see everything that was going on, who was coming up on the elevator. I mean, it was a little bit more of a, you know, it gave a more of a voyeurism quality to it that, you know, that added to the people knew what was going on. That was an interesting setup.
I just want to know, and I put something in the chat as a resource. This is, if you're interested in learning more about this, sage.org is a organization that supports and advocates for older LGBTQIA plus people, exactly for the reasons that we're talking about, and the research that's been done around, especially in the US, how unfortunately the pioneers of the movement, the modern movement in America, in the 70s, 80s, went through the AIDS crisis and so forth, are sometimes being forced back into the closet as they get into, nursing care homes and retirement places, that it's not, they're having to hide their identity again in order to get into the places, and they can't be free with if they're a partner and spouse. So this is and I think it's getting better, but it's a sad reality that actually is happening. It's people who've been absolute pioneers in the work trying to hide again because of ageism combined with homophobia, transphobia, et cetera. So this organization, SAGE, is a great org if you want to check it out and just learn a little bit more about it. I think, did I put this other movie? There's another movie. Oh, wait. Oh, this is another movie, a documentary called Jen Silent. I'm going to share with you. And it's about what I'm talking about too. This is the Wikipedia page, but it follows a trans person, older trans person, a couple of gay men, and a couple of other stories of aging and being LGBTQIA+ and what happens in their life. So I wanted to share those as well as a resource.
Liz, I was trying to think of the name of that Jen Silent. I did see that it was a presentation. I don't know through what, but it was shown in my workplace as an extra, something you could go to years ago, sometime in I would say maybe the early 2000s, or
I don't know when.
I think it was in the 2000 teens.
Yeah.
I just remember it was very, it was such a good movie. And I'm glad you knew the name of it. It's definitely worth watching.
Yeah, it is. It's really good. Yeah, we screened it at the LGBT Center, and I think MSAS at some point. Maybe I could be making this up completely. Don't quote me on this, but I feel like we partnered and we screened it, or I partnered with someone, and we screened it at Case too in the early 2000s.
I'm in Boston. Yeah, I'm in Boston is where one of the, I don't know if it was through a society I belong to or the hospital program itself.
Yeah, I'd watch it.
Thank you for those reads. I just want to add one more to the chat. I'm going to put the link to the Cinematheque virtual offerings.
Yeah.
And so Cinematheque, Genevieve was on a little earlier. She is the representative from the Cleveland Institute of Arts, Cinematheque. And so she actually worked with Crystal and I to help us figure out, where to even start with the movies, because Cinematheque offers so many films and they're constantly updating and rolling all throughout the year. And they're usually available, I think, on their calendar for maybe a month or two at a time. And so she was instrumental in that, as well as, helping us get those great instructions out to you and make sure you could get the film accurately. And so if you have time and if you would like to, keep your film festival going, you can just check out the virtual offerings from Cinematheque, and you can just purchase those directly. There won't be any discussion segments to go along with them, but there's still a lot of great films, and I know I have several that I want to watch myself. So I hope you get a chance to check those out.
Love Cinematheque. Awesome. I can't wait for them to open again. I used to go all the time. It's such a great, and it's right on campus too. Yeah, they're fantastic.
I have a technical question.
Yes.
Is there a way to recover what's in the chat? Or do I have to write down right now the things that you're, the references and the things you're suggesting?
No, we'll get Crystal and I will get like a transcript of the chat, and we can send that out to you, Paula. It'll have everything that we said here, and like the links and everything. So no need to jot it down.
Okay, thank you.
And then when we send, at the end of the film festival, we'll be sending like an overall follow-up email that'll have the recordings and everything. And we'll be sure to put a lot of these links in there as well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone who was here and involved in this conversation, and Crystal and Tiana, thank you for organizing it. Alumni Association, it's great to meet some of you, and Adrian, so good to see you. Yeah, thank you for doing it. Cool. I'm really glad we were able to be involved.
Great. Yeah, on behalf of the Alumni Association of CWRU, thanks everyone for joining. Liz, Rockeforte, thank you so much. Again, continue to be a rock star campus partner, and a joy and delight to work with. And I want to thank all of you for joining and participating in the conversation. Our last film, Identifying Features, and that discussion will be Monday the 22nd with Alexander Kusik from the law school. So if you get a chance to want to watch that film, definitely join us then on Monday.
What time is that again? I'm sorry.
Monday the 22nd at 6 o'clock.
6, thank you.
Yeah, so if you get a chance to come, definitely join that discussion for another powerful film. And if there's anything else that we can do for you, visit us at case.edu/alumni for all of our other like virtual program offerings, recordings, and alumni resources. And you can also follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, just by searching CWRU Alumni. And so thank you so much for joining us this evening. And thanks again to Liz and to all of you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.
Bye.